Well, now it's my pleasure to introduce you to a couple that's still fairly recently married. There's the baby that they've got right with them. I knew them sort of before they knew me. We lived in the same town. And at first we would see Maggie there. And then all of a sudden, after a little bit of time, there'd be this other guy kind of next to her. And say, hey, I think they got something going there. This guy likes her. And sure enough, they got married, and then we got to meet them personally. And it turns out that Joe and Maggie both give talks. Well, Maggie's on relevant radio quite a bit. Joe gives talks. He's a professional financial advisor. And they're going to talk about finances, keeping priorities straight, because that's finances are all about. So, without further eloquence, as they used to say, I introduce you to Joe and Maggie Carrozza and Michael Joseph Carrozza. Oh, and one thing too, I'll be right back. And if Michael starts getting antsy, I'm going to get the high sign and I'll take him. After 9 kids, I'm used to this kind of thing, so I'll be there to handle it. Go, expecting tomorrow. But wait, we haven't got the word yet, but that was the due date, our 31st grandchild.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Yeah. Dan, thank you for that introduction. Pleasure to meet all of you. My name is Joe Carrozza.
Maggie Carrozza, and this is Michael Joseph, and he just ate, so if you hear a belch at some point,
that's good news.
It's good news.
When you guys have kids, you're gonna learn to celebrate burps,
and
farts.
Yeah.
The pleasures of being a baby.
Yeah.
So excited to be here talking with you guys today. As Dan said, we've been married just over a year. We got married last May of 2023. And we just welcomed this little guy into the world.
6 weeks ago.
6 weeks old. So we're new parents as well. So all the stuff we're going to talk about today kind of takes on a whole different dimension when you're kind of in the situation that we're in, which is married and being parents.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why we're here qualified to talk about the things we're talking about today, I'm a CFA, I'm a chartered financial analyst. I'm also a financial planner, and I primarily work with Catholic families and Catholic business owners, helping them to make smart decisions with their money for the future.
And I used to work for Dave Ramsey down in Tennessee. He's had one of the longest running financial radio shows out of Nashville for almost 30 years now, which is crazy. And I helped write a curriculum down in Tennessee for teaching financial literacy to women. Yeah.
So why is it important for us to understand and be more prudent with our finances? The first and most obvious one is that our finances allow us to provide for our family and for our community at large.
And financial issues are typically listed as one of the primary leading causes of discord in marriages. So it's important to figure out, what are we doing here?
Furthermore, our faith calls us to be good stewards of God's gifts. There's a reason it's one of the most talked about subjects in the Bible.
When Joe and I were creating this, we wanted to paint a picture first before we get into the meat and potatoes of this. There's a huge discrepancy between what our culture and the world talk about finances and wealth and what our faith says about money and wealth. So, off the top of your head, Joe, what are some things that the culture says about finances?
Yeah. Spend recklessly, rack up credit card debt, take out massive student loans for name brand college degrees, which often don't even end up getting used. You have to be a dual income family worried about keeping up with the Joneses. That kids are too expensive. Don't have kids. They're way too expensive. Gambling and get-rich-quick schemes are everywhere. You know, everybody's worried about the big investment or the big cryptocurrency that you could buy.
Or the casino in town. Or
Casinos everywhere. You walk into a random gas station, there's a slot machine there. It's everywhere, right? So that's what the secular world is telling us about money. Those are the messages we're getting. But what does God, what does our religion tell us about finances and lifestyle?
money is actually one of the most talked about subjects in the Bible, with more than 2,000 verses mentioning wealth or possessions. 15% of everything that Jesus spoke about was related somehow to money or wealth. 16 out of his 38 parables dealt with the topic. So it's important to look at it and go, okay, well, what is he saying? What should we know?
Yeah, and I'm sure you would assume that it's being talked about in a negative light, right? But the Bible actually talks about it positively, urging prudence, hard work, and generosity. So what are some of those nuggets of wisdom that are in the Bible?
We're going to cruise through some scripture here. We don't expect you to memorize these, but maybe some of these will ping your brain a little bit, and you'll go, oh, I recognize that. Proverbs 21:20 says, the wise store up choice food and oil, but fools gulp theirs down.
Proverbs 28:20, a faithful man will abound with blessings, but he who hastens to get rich will not go unpunished.
Proverbs 13:11 is inscribed on our son's piggy bank. He already has a piggy bank. It says, wealth hastily gotten will dwindle, but he who gathers little by little will increase it.
Matthew 25:14 through 30 is the parable of the talents. You guys have probably heard about this one. It cautions against being fearful of loss and being overly risk averse. It talks about how we must use the gifts and resources that we've been given to make sure that we invest and grow them.
That's the parable where Jesus actually says that the master calls the servant who buries the one talent, he calls him you wicked servant. It's like, whoa, that's pretty harsh language for just not investing your gifts.
Ecclesiastes 11:2 actually tells us to diversify. Invest in 7 ventures, yes, in 8. You do not know what disaster may come upon the land.
And Christ says in Luke 14:28-30, he basically mentions budgeting. He says, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Wouldn't you first sit down and estimate the cost to see if you have enough money to complete it? If you lay the foundation and you're not able to finish it, everyone who comes by will ridicule you, saying, he started something but could not finish it.
The Bible also warns against greed. 1 Timothy 6:10. This one is often misquoted. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. It doesn't say money is the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil.
But we've probably all seen that in our day and age now of social media. We have those friends who kind of seem to like sell themselves out to make a buck, and they're chasing something other than their own like dignity and self-worth. So be aware of that. Matthew 6:24, this is Christ telling us that no one can serve 2 masters. You're going to either love one and hate the other, or hold fast to one and despise the other. He says, men cannot serve both God and mammon, mammon being money or currency.
Jeremiah 9:23 through 24. This is what the Lord says, let not the wise boast in their wisdom, or the strong boast in their strength, or the rich boast of their riches. But let the one who boasts boast in this, that they have an understanding to know me, that I am the Lord who exercises kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. For in these things I delight.
So in order to not go off track with wealth, God gives us a natural virtue, a tool to combat greed, and that would be generosity. Generosity is this beautiful thing that lets you let go of your attachment to possessions and wealth for the good of other people, for the good of your community. So there's a couple great verses about that. Acts 20:35, in everything I did, I showed you that by this kind of hard work we must help the weak, remembering the words that our Lord Jesus said, it's more blessed to give than it is to receive.
Luke 21:1. And Jesus looked up and saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. I lost my place.
He also saw
And he also saw a certain poor widow putting in 2 mites. So he said, truly I say to you that this poor widow has put in more than all, for all these put in from their abundance, but she out of her poverty put in all the livelihood that she had.
Ezekiel 44:30 says, "The first of all first fruits of all kinds of every offering shall belong to the priests. You shall also give to the priests the first of your dough, that a blessing may rest on your house." I think that one really sort of emphasizes the beauty of tithing. It's not something that you kind of do out of in a begrudging manner or an obligation. It's something that you should do out of joy and out of charity.
Proverbs 3:9, very similar. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all of your produce.
So now that we know that this is important, how do we come up with a game plan?
Yeah, where do we start? The first and most important thing is really to understand yours and your spouse's background. Our experiences and how we were raised, in a large part, determine our relationships with money. So when it comes to money, how was it treated and talked about in your family? What did you see your parents doing, talking about? How about you? What did you see?
In my house, my parents really had nothing when they got married in their early 20s, and so they always really urged prudence and hard work ethic, saving and not spending recklessly, which were all like amazing gifts to learn from them. But also on the flip side, sometimes it was like a sensitive thing to talk about, and so they would more often than not talk about it in front of us. So that also sometimes kind of was a little bit of a handicap, because sometimes I didn't quite know what certain things were worth or how to take risk in certain areas.
Yeah, sometimes it could be a sore subject, so
Yeah,
people kind of avoid talking about it altogether.
sure. And I mean, think about it. You guys are about to embark in a lifelong journey together. You both will find, as you get closer and closer together, how different you can be in certain areas. How you were raised in your different families. You're coming from different backgrounds. Everything is going to have a different connotation to each of you. So it's important to just kind of figure out where are you both coming from.
Yeah, and to realize what your strengths and weaknesses are too. You're coming together as a couple. You guys have different views, different behaviors when it comes to money. A lot of people I talk with, if the money's in the account, they're going to spend it. So what's the best way to prevent against that?
Not having money in the account.
Not having money in the account. So having some automated saving strategies in place to kind of suck the money out of the account, put it over here so nobody can touch it.
You gotta know yourself.
It's very, very true. And realizing whether you're a saver or a spender too. Some people have a proclivity towards spending. Some people towards saving. And the ultimate goal is being a planner, having a plan for all of the dollars that you make.
So, out of curiosity, have you all? I mean, you're all in pre-CANA. Have you had a serious discussion yet about finances? As far as this is my earning capacity. Here's what kind of debt I carry. You're nodding. Good. Anybody else? Yes. Okay. We've had these discussions. If you have not, highly recommend. It seems like not a great date night topic, but maybe next time you get takeout and you're at home, just open up that door and just talk about it. It's really not that scary. You're gonna have to get it all out on the table.
Will we get an outline text more from you to ask?
This is how you talk about it. Here's the rubric.
Fill in these blanks.
Just remember that this is just the starting point.
Yeah, it's important to have an honest and sober look at the situation between both people, debt, savings, earning capacity, some of those behaviors that we talked about, because ultimately we need to recognize that a unified game plan is going to always trump every man for themselves.
Totally.
Combining your resources together is always going to lead to a better outcome for the family. So, looking at tackling expensive debt first, no matter whose name it's under, because ultimately your balance sheet it's becoming one. You can borrow together to qualify for lower rates in some situations. So those are just some examples as to how the two of you need to kind of band together to tackle this money problem. It's not a problem, but just this issue, this situation together.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of things in marriage. You find yourself realizing you have to switch your language the closer you get to marriage. It's no longer mine and yours. It's now ours. It's
Mhm.
we, ours. Everything is going to be shared.
Yeah, and that communication aspect is very key. You guys need to be open, honest. You guys need to be able to talk about this, and you have to have some clarity about what the future looks like.
Yeah.
If you don't have a destination in mind, we're kind of just like a rudderless ship adrift at sea, right? So you need to have conversations like what, and I guess this is kind of getting into what you were talking about earlier. What does the ideal family look like? What's each spouse's role going to be in the family?
Do you want kids? Where do you want to live? What kind of house are you going to have? Are you going to have a house? Where are you going to be 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now?
Mm-hmm.
All of that, you need to both be honest. You need to paint a vision together that you're both aiming towards.
Absolutely. One of the things we're going to have to do when we first start is develop a joint budget. We're going to have to put pen to paper, and we're going to have to take a serious look at what's coming in versus what's going out.
I know people hate the word budget. I worked with Dave Ramsey long enough that it became one of my favorite words. Budgeting is really not that hard, and it sounds awful. It sounds like it's constricting. It's really not. It's actually like a plan for your freedom and your future. So you're going to be bad at it the first couple months that you do it, because combining two people's lives and spending habits and finances is not like I'm going to get it right on the first try. It's going to be a little messy for a while. You're going to take months where you're completely off in your projections, and then there's going to be months where you're like, we kind of figured that out.
Yeah, you'll get better at it over time, and you're going to find out which expenses you have are frivolous. When we got married, I had 2 gym memberships. I don't have 2 gym memberships any longer. One of them got axed. So those are the types of things you guys are going to have those discussions, and it really helps when you guys are acting like a team and both people are showing up and contributing to the discussion together. Not just one person driving the ship and saying how things are going to be. Both people need to contribute to the conversation.
Totally, yeah. There's some general kind of like guardrails you can put when you're looking at your budget and what your money is being allocated to. 50% of your income should go directly to what we call the 4 walls, and that is basically everything that you need to survive: your rent or your mortgage, bills, food, like gas, electricity, all the things that make your life go.
Yeah, these are like the necessities, the fixed expenses
Yeah.
that you guys have to have.
20% of your income should go towards discretionary spending, and that's, your whatever walking around money is, like the eating out, buying clothes. 20% should go towards saving or investing, and at least 10%. These are all kind of movable percentages, but at least 10% should go to the church and charity, giving and tithing. It's really important, and I think the more you realize the benefit of giving, you might even increase it at certain points.
Combining accounts is really important as well, and there's actually been research that's been done on this. The National Marriage Project conducted research and found that marriages have a higher rating of overall satisfaction and trust when accounts are combined and not separate. It helps keep everything transparent, out in the open. There's none of these like hidden expenses, so to speak.
Yeah, many couples report feeling betrayed when their spouse commits what they call financial infidelity. How would you feel if 10 years down the line you found out that your husband has a private, bank account or debt? There was a Dave Ramsey story of a couple who, I mean, they've been married for like 30 years, and somewhere down the line, the wife had like this crazy shopping addiction. She racked up like $80,000 in credit card debt, and he had no idea until collectors started knocking on the door. So like, can you imagine that you would feel so betrayed? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Talking about debt, one of the things that's really important is for us to tackle debt the smart way. So this is paying off debt while we're also saving for the future. Debt isn't good. It's not bad. It's a tool. And there's productive debt. You can take out a mortgage to purchase a house. You could take out a student loan to study something that's going to give you a degree that's going to help you earn more money in the future. But sometimes people fall into a habit of living a more extravagant lifestyle than they can afford. They rack up bad debt, right? What does that usually look like? Generally, credit card debt. That's typically the most expensive form of debt that people have. It's helpful to rank your debt, highest interest rate to lowest interest rate. The credit card debt's typically the highest one. That's the one we want to tackle first. There's tools like 0% balance transfer credit cards that, if you're going to use smart, can be utilized to help you lower your interest rate and your debt burden. Student loan debt's usually next. If you have federal student loans, you can change your repayment plan at any time, which could help lower payments, help with cash flow, or potentially help you pay off your debt quicker. One more thing I'll add is that a lot of people, they don't like debt. They want to get out of debt as quick as possible. There's some times where it makes sense to pay it off as slow as they are requiring you to. Like, for instance, I meet with a lot of people that got mortgages 5 years ago when interest rates were in the high 2s, low 3s. It doesn't make sense to pay that off as quick as possible right now, because mortgage rates right now are in the 6s and 7s, and you can earn more money on a simple high yield savings account compared to what you might be paying on your mortgage. Just an example. Debt's a tool, and it should be treated intelligently.
You probably have a lot of tools available to you that you don't really even utilize or know about. Most workplaces, if you have an employer, I mean, most of them come with benefits, and sometimes we don't even think about how those benefits can be used in our favor.
Mm-hmm. You can talk with a financial planner to help you figure that out. You can talk with an HR person at work to take a look at your workplace benefits, making sure that you're taking full advantage of what you have available to you there. Also, there's different tax advantage savings tools that make sense to take advantage of, like your 401k. When you have kids and you start saving for their education, we just started doing this for Michael. There's 529 plans. These are tools that you can save money into to grow money tax-free for your child's education in the future.
And health savings accounts are a really great tool. A lot of employers offer some sort of HSA. I had a friend at work who, she was middle-aged and single, and she was like, you know what, I'm using this sort of as like a really great way to build my wealth. She was just shoveling like half of her paycheck into her HSA as much as she could.
Yeah, it's the only triple tax exempt savings tool, an HSA. So those are really helpful to take advantage of if you have a high deductible health plan. So the next thing, it's really important to know who's on your team and get professional help when it's necessary. I'm available to talk with you guys if you guys have any questions about finances. I think it's also really important to work with other Catholic professionals. I know Catholic accountants, I know Catholic real estate agents, lawyers, handymen,
Yeah.
Anything really. I think it's
Do you have a reference list?
Actually, he does.
Yeah. I do have a ton of contacts for all those. I don't have one that I could really like send out, but that's actually something I'm talking with some other Catholic professionals in the Chicagoland area about. is creating a reference list for that type of thing.
I think
Here's
that'd
another
be
thing.
great.
You could look at the back of the bulletin,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
right? There's a lot of people that are patronizing, maybe they're parishioners, they're at least supporting the parish through their donations and putting their advertisements on the back of the bulletin.
And just since having a baby, we realized like, oh my gosh, if anything were to happen to either of us, what happens then? And so we literally just started having a conversation with what do you call them?
Yeah, an estate planning
Estate
attorney.
planning attorney,
Yeah.
yes.
So it's something that it's really the most relevant when you have kids. It's relevant before then as well, but making sure you have different legal planning that's set in place, guardianship for your children. Illinois is kind of a screwy state. You want to make sure you have a lot of that stuff laid out in ink, and to have that done with a professional estate planning attorney, because there's a lot of screwy things about Illinois law. One of them being if you don't have guardianship delineated. So, like, let's say, God forbid, me and Maggie went out on a date one night, and my mom was at home watching the kids. If we didn't come back, we got hit by a truck on the drive back home. It takes the state a long time to figure out who the guardian will be of your children, and they're technically like placed in the foster care while that's happening. So it's really important to have stuff like that laid out, dealt with a professional.
Maggie's like, we need to sign these papers tomorrow.
Seriously.
Absolutely. So, just kind of some general advice as we kind of wrap things up here. It's important to work together. Success comes from working as a team and having open lines of communication. Sometimes there's things that me and Maggie are like uncomfortable about talking to each other. Last night Maggie said, before we went to bed, baby was sleeping, she's like, hey, we got to sit down on the couch and talk about something. Just something that was on her mind. And we kind of hashed things out, and it was great afterwards. And it was something that was kind of bugging both of us in the back of our head. But it was really awesome that we were able to sit down and talk things through. So open lines of communication. Finances aren't just a matter of numbers. It's a lot of human behavior, mindset. There's a lot of emotions involved in it. So, it's important to kind of take all of that into account as well.
And you're gonna want to develop ways that your money is working for you. You're not working for money, if that makes sense. It's kind of a mindset thing. You don't want to be out in the world just chasing the next dollar. You want to be making sure that you're living in a way that the money comes to you how it needs to come to you. Life's too short to be only focused on that.
Yeah, money's going to come and it's going to go, but your spouse, your family, that's going to be constant. So you got to make sure you have each other's backs through no matter what type of situations come your way. For richer or poorer. Honoring the natural order that God has given us.
Yeah. First in your life should be God. It should be the center of your life as an individual and as a couple. And then everything flows out from that. Your relationship with your spouse is centered through that connection. And then with your children is centered through that connection with your spouse and up to God. And work. All of these things, like your work would have no meaning if you weren't doing it for your children and your wife. You know, does that make sense? It's a natural order, and a lot of times people invert this these days. They put work up here, and everything else follows after that, and then they wonder why their lives.
I think you told me some stories, right? People would call into the Dave Ramsey show.
Yes, yeah, this happened a lot. If you listen to Dave Ramsey, you probably on any given day would have something like this pop up on the show. But, for example, some guy would call in and, Dave, I just don't understand. My business is in shambles. My relationship, my wife and I are separated. Everything is just going to hell. And he he would always like be able to sniff out what's going on within a couple of questions, and you know, he'd be like, well, first of all, let's talk about like what happened in your marriage. Why are you separated? He wouldn't focus on the business first. He would go right to what's going on with your relationship. And then he'd usually say something like, you gotta get right with God. You gotta get right with your spouse. You gotta humble yourself, go buy her flowers, go show up at the door. You need to talk about this. You need to reunite. You need to man up. You need to be the man that you need to be. Be a husband, be a father. Once you figure that out, your business is gonna follow suit. And you go like, wait, what? Nobody says that in modern culture. Nobody says that. But it's like so simple, but it follows this natural order of life. And you'll probably see this in your own life and in the lives of your family and friends. It makes sense once you look at the world that way.
So just a couple of last tips here, running the business of the household. We find it really helpful to have a weekly calendar sync. Every Sunday we'll kind of talk about what's on the schedule for the week ahead.
Yeah, because we realize you'll find as a newly married couple, I think you get used to, especially, I mean, most of you are like our age too, you're just kind of used to going about in the world, just doing whatever you want and making decisions on the fly, or, you know, you have your own calendars, and then, you know, it comes to like, you know, 2 or 3 days go by, like you're not seeing each other at home, or, you know, like there was one morning, he was like putting on his shoes at like 5 a.m. and I was like, where are you going? He was like, I gotta go to work, I got an early day. I was like, oh, I had no idea. So we just learned Sundays are a great time to be like, what does the week look like for you? What should we be prepared for? What should we factor in?
Mm-hmm. We find it really helpful to have a monthly business meeting too. This is where we're going over some of the budget items. We're planning for any big things that might be happening for the month ahead. Logistics to figure out, like transportation, if there's any big purchases that need to be made, birthday gifts, events, those types of things. Talk about that during our monthly business meeting, as we call it.
But that sounds really like boring. So don't forget to have fun and make it like a date, and you'll learn to enjoy communicating with each other, because it's not like a bore or drudgery. You're having fun with each other. You're planning your future. Like that should be a good thing, right? It should be fun. So the last two pieces of advice, even though they're the last, we think that they're probably the most important, because it makes all of this just work. You need to pray together as a couple every day. And if you're not, start. And it can be something really simple. If you feel shy about praying with each other, I know some people do because maybe they didn't grow up with that, or maybe it feels awkward to them to pray out loud together. Start with something simple. Start with saying grace out loud before your meals, and say what you're thankful for that day. Say a couple bedtime prayers before you hop into bed. Get yourselves doing those things now. And then, you know, maybe on the way to Mass, you pray a rosary every now and then, or take a nice walk and pray a rosary, or a chaplet of Divine Mercy. Learn to pray together, because it will become the bedrock of how you communicate with each other and with God, and with your children too. You need to teach your children these things. I think we live in a culture, I mean, we just don't see prayer anymore in our media. Nobody really talks about it. You need to be an example of everyday Catholic life.
Absolutely. And the last one, I think it's most important because you're here, about to enter into marriage together. Be open to life. Got this little beautiful baby here.
He's the best.
He's awesome.
You're gonna love it.
We told him, we're like, hey, you better be really well behaved. We're going to be in front of a bunch of new spouses here soon. There's nothing that's more exciting and enjoyable than being a parent, and it's one of those situations where everybody says everything changes when it happens. It's the truth. It's the truth. So
Yeah, and that first week after his birth, it was so special in so many ways that you're not really prepared for it. I mean, people tell you that it's special, but I'm a very independent lady, and I had never before in my life been so incapacitated. And like you're healing, you got to take things slow. You got to take care of the baby, but you also got to take care of yourself. And so I was leaning on Joe more than I had ever in my life. I was very dependent on him, and he was taking such good care of me. And it was this beautiful, like, cycle of just us all taking care of each other. And it really hit me that the family is a very, very holy and sacred thing.
yeah, it was one of the most fun weeks of my entire life. I've never cooked and cleaned more during that week than I ever have
It was so
ever
fun.
before.
I
I
was
was
like,
whipping
"What?"
stuff up that I had never cooked before, and Maggie's like, "This is the most delicious thing I've ever eaten." I think we said that like 20 times that week.
Yeah.
But it was just so beautiful. I was like, Maggie, I just want you to focus on resting and recovering and taking care of the little baby. I'll do everything else. Do everything else. And
Be open to life.
yeah, it's a wonderful, beautiful gift, and I hope all of you are blessed with that. For some reason, you're not. There's so many other beautiful ways that you can give back. Adoption. Everybody has a different calling, and
Yeah.
we don't know what that looks like until it's right in front of us.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of you'll probably have a lot of friends and family that say like, we want a couple selfish years or this or that. Like it's not the right time for us. Like we want to wait till this or that. And meanwhile, probably, I mean, I'm just gonna say it, contracepting in some way. Don't do it. You think it's making your plans, it's actually messing your plans up. God has something so much greater for you than you ever expected. So just trust him.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We could open it up to questions if we want, Dan. If anybody has any questions.
Yeah, a couple of things. We see if anybody has any questions, but there's a common strain that runs through all these talks, and it's what I want to call real film. What is really there? What is this really, really all about? And you get involved with that rather than the fantasy thing. We all start to think, well, if I just won the lotto, oh man, that would solve all my problems. And a funny couple stories about that. There's a story about a guy who was really way deep into debt. He's like, gotta win the lotto, gotta win it. So he starts praying to God, the jackpot's up to $10 million this year. I gotta win. The list comes out Monday. Who won? His name got on. The next week, it's up now to $15 million. God, now I know maybe you got something bigger for me. I gotta win the lotto. I'm going broke. I'm gonna go bankrupt. I gotta win. God, make me win the lotto. The list comes out. Beginning of the week, his name's not on it. So finally, now he's mad at God. He said, God, I prayed. I did everything. I prayed to you like a child. I had to win the lotto. I didn't win. Why are you listening to me? Why did I win the lotto? And he hears a little voice. Give me a break. Buy a ticket. And the funny thing about the lotto, statistically, over 85% of people who win the lotto blow it all in 3 years.
Oh, totally.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not the answer. What the answer is, professionalism, doing your work, some of the stuff that they're saying here. And it's not just, it's not ever going to be a superficial solution. The guy that reads the Epistle of Mass, that's the guy that I want to go to for my advice. Hey, like anything else, see if this guy's got the wherewithal to do the job for you. It's not, there's no easy solutions. You got to use your head. My financial advisor is a Jewish guy from the University of Chicago. He's done a great job for me. He's a professional. We want to be professionals ourselves. Get the job done. Real villain. So, and that's the same way with life, with following the Ten Commandments. God is real. God is real. And start talking. Don't be praying for wins and lotto when you're not even buying a ticket, or even if you are buying a ticket, because God will always answer our prayers, but He answers them the way that He knows best.
Yeah.
And sometimes He stretches us. Sometimes He makes us wait. Sometimes He purifies us, and it's all part of it. Okay. Any questions for this wonderful couple here?
About life, marriage. We're very experienced in the marriage game, you know. Whole year into it at this point.
Yeah. Go ahead.
How did you factor in cost of your child to your budget? I guess before you had and then as of right now.
Well, so thankfully, we basically had said all of my earnings that I had in my HSA were going to go to all of the expenses for the hospital stay, and it's really not as much as you might think it would be. I mean, they bill insurance quite a bit, but then you're responsible for only a fraction of that. You know, take advantage of help from family and friends. You know, people are going to want to get you baby gifts, and let them.
Take them up on it.
Take them up on that.
Yeah. Come up with the registry.
Yeah.
Maggie did all this research. She researched stuff that we actually needed. There's all these gizmos and gadgets, right?
There's all kinds of stuff. A baby does not need a bassinet does not need Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
You know, just don't come on, no.
Real bill.
Real bill.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Totally.
But the baby themselves, once they're born, and I know that it seems like there's a lot of equipment that comes with them, and the baby themselves doesn't.
They need their mom.
Much. They need mom and milk, and diapers. You know, so you'll figure it out.
Just have
Yeah.
Yes.
Going back to the state planning, I guess, does the godfather and godmother not hold any legal weight?
That is a misconception. I mean, I think spiritually, that's kind of what people, hope for, that those people would really look out for your child if you're gone. But legally, it holds
No.
it holds no weight. So you have to have.
You can name them the guardians if that's
Yeah.
how you view them, and if that's a conversation you have with them, and they're willing to accept that responsibility.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Okay.
Can we have your contact info if we want to talk to you about finance? Or if you're not taking
yeah.
new clients, that's okay.
Yeah, I don't have any cards on me, but if you want to find me on LinkedIn,
Oh,
my name is Joseph
Or
Carrozza.
we can give you contact information here,
Yeah, or I
phone
can
number or
give you my
something.
contact info after
Yeah, if
after
you,
we
I can
talk
send you
today.
their contact information.
Oh, nice. Perfect. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, that was your person.
No.
Not at all.
Remind me though, Nicole, if I forgot. Okay.
Yeah,
Anybody else? Okay, well, next week we got some more interesting stuff. We're going to talk about Christian morality as relates specifically to Christian marriage. And then we're going to talk about getting home. How in the heck do we communicate with each other? Okay, and the different personalities that we have. There's always a bridge. For example, one of the things you'll see when my wife and I talk, we are completely incompatible as far as temperament is concerned. We've been married for 47 years, and we love each other. We're very happy. So how did that happen? We'll talk about it. Let's end with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Spirit. Lord, we're all greenhorns in this thing. We need your help. But you are love. Love is the way you operate. Power is within you. Goodness is what you are. May we be open to outpouring of that so that we can be filled with your light and your love and your power, so that when we go into the world's a little brighter, a little warmer, a a little more loving, because we're caring and living in your love, in the world in which we live, no matter how dark it might be in other places, no matter how much difficulty and evil and violence that are out there. Let us be some of the people that turn the lights back on, that come from you. We ask this to Christ our Lord and his blessed Mother. Amen. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.